There are over 478,000 ponds and counting in the UK, and they play an important role in both our history and in our culture. A well-designed and maintained pond creates a complex habitat and a haven for all sorts of plants, birds and algae. However, our ponds are threatened by pollution, climate change, drainage, development and invasive species, for example, floating pennywort, parrot's feather and water primrose. Ponds provide essential drinking water and bathing water for all sorts of birds and mammals. However, if they're affected by any of these threats, this can impact the entire ecosystem. The Student Local Action Group SING, or the Student Invasive Non-Native Group, is based at Cornwall College, Newquay. The group aims to increase action and awareness on invasive non-native species, or INNS, and reduce the impacts that these species are having on the local native wildlife. One of these invasive species, as previously mentioned, is parrot's feather, or Myrophilium aquaticum. It's originally native to Central and South America, but has been grown in water gardens in the UK since 1878. It was first recorded in the wild in 1960, where people think it was just spread due to improper disposal from someone's garden pond. It's now prevalent throughout the south of England and is spreading northwards, however it is still rare in Scotland. Parrot's feather is incredibly distinctive and very easy to spot because of its bluey-green colour, its feather-like leaves, and its stems that emerge from the water. A fragment as small as 5 millimetres can regrow from this plant, so it's important that if you are pulling parrot's feather out of your garden, you pull it up from the entire root. Although incredibly aesthetically pleasing, parrot's feather is a major problem throughout the south of England. The thick raft of vegetation that grows poses a threat to plants and fish by blocking out sunlight and reducing the oxygen levels in the water. It can also choke the waterways and increase the risk of flooding. Similarly, the New Zealand pygmy-weed, which was introduced into Britain from Australia in 1911, also blocks out oxygen and light levels. Ironically, this plant was originally introduced as an oxygenating plant for ponds, but since the 70s has spread rapidly. It produces tiny white flowers which make it easily recognisable when growing at the edges of the water. However, it's incredibly frost resistant and, like parrot's feather, can also regenerate from tiny fragments, easily taking over new areas. Floating pennywort, another invasive non-native species, has an incredible growth rate of up to 20 centimetres a day. It's usually found floating on the surface of still or slow-moving water where it has escaped into the wild. It's currently known to be present in at least 150 different locations in England and Wales. Again, none yet have been recorded in Scotland. It forms very thick mats which can look like dry land, and so can be a real danger to people and livestock. It impedes the water flow and chokes the waterways, which can make it incredibly difficult for boats and fishing and can also increase the risk of flooding. It too blocks out light, posing a threat to plants and fish, and it impedes access to fish feeding and resting spaces. So, what can you do to help prevent invasive non-native species spreading in your local area? Like SING, you too can host pond clearing sessions where you can clear these species from your local area or your garden yourself. It's important to make sure that you can identify invasive species so you can control them in the most appropriate way. It's also vital to make sure that if you do clear any invasive species from your pond, to make sure they are disposed of properly so they don't spread any further into the wild. This has actually become a legal requirement, and you could be fined up to £5,000 or be sent to prison for up to 2 years if you allow contaminated soil or plant material from any waste you transfer to spread into the wild and spread even more invasive species. You can also make sure that if you have a pond yourself or make one yourself, you create one that is perfect for the local ecosystem. You want to make sure that you've made it as big as you possibly can for the space you have in your garden, that you only plant native pond species to the UK, and that you never take plants from the wild. Any insects, amphibians and invertebrates will find their way to your pond in time. And never introduce goldfish. Goldfish are known for eating frog and toad spawn, so keeping those out of your pond will create a thriving ecosystem full of amazing life that you can look at right in your back garden.